Welcome to the Nonsense Lullaby. I'm your host, Kevin. Settle in, let your thoughts loosen their laces, and drift into a world where logic takes a nap and dreams do the talking. Tonight's tale will be narrated by Wilson, so find a comfy spot, close your eyes, and let the whimsy begin.
Once upon a mid-morning drizzle, in a town neither here nor there, but almost certainly somewhere between a sneeze and a whisper, there lived an upside-down umbrella named Flibble. Flibble wasn't entirely upside down, more like diagonally hopeful and slightly confused about gravity. He spent most of his afternoons in a forgotten cupboard next to a jar of expired chutney and a postcard from a walrus that only said, "Soon." Now, Flibble wasn't your typical umbrella. No. He dreamed not of rain, nor of sunny days left in shadow, but of soup. Thick, brothy alphabet-infused soups that spelled out nonsensical words like glormph and zootler. He believed, in the deepest fibers of his polyester ribs, that one day he would become a ladle living by the sea in a porcelain bowl, scooping soup with dignity and possibly a tasteful hat. One day, a pigeon wearing a monocle, Sir Hobblesnort, fluttered into the cupboard holding a spoon made entirely of whispers. "I've been sent by the Council of Discarded Picnic Items," he declared, as though making an announcement to a room of startled jelly beans. "We believe you are the chosen one." "Chosen for what?" Flibble asked, his handle trembling slightly, partly from excitement and partly because a draft was coming from the cheese drawer below. "To stop the marmalade eclipse," Sir Hobblesnort whispered. "If it happens, toast everywhere will lose its sense of direction." "But I'm just an umbrella." "Exactly." Without further exposition, logic, or packing snacks, they leapt through a fold in the wallpaper and found themselves in a meadow of slowly rotating socks. The sky was mauve with hints of indecision, and the sun kept blinking like it was trying to remember something it forgot to regret. They encountered Gerald, a sentient doorknob who only spoke in limericks. He informed them, between rhyme and metaphysical hiccups, that to stop the marmalade eclipse they'd have to sing the national anthem of Slumberville backwards while riding a spoonboat across a tapioca sea. So they did. The spoonboat was large and extremely apologetic. The anthem, when sung in reverse, summoned a sleepy breeze that lulled even the rowdiest salt-shakers into dreams of gentle pepper. Flibble, at last, scooped up a warm ladle of dream soup and felt something unfamiliar. Contentment. Or maybe he was a coat rack all along. It was hard to tell. The sky rippled like philosophical jelly, but no story that makes no sense ends just because it's finished. In fact, it usually doubles back, pirouettes into a cupboard full of cinnamon regrets, and begins all over again with a slightly louder hat. As dawn broke sideways over the tapioca sea, the sky hiccuped. Out of the foam emerged a moose, but not just any moose. This one had buttons for antlers, a bow tie made of discarded napkins, and an aura of polite confusion. His name? Sir Taffleton Buttersneeze III, keeper of the Left Shoe Lint Archives. "Why is the sea made of pudding today?" Flibble asked, watching the spoonboat dissolve into an emotional puddle. "Because Tuesday overslept," the moose replied gravely, even though it was clearly Wednesday with delusions of Friday. "The pancake watchers are restless. We must consult the rubber duck oracle." "But aren't you the moose from the prophecy? The one who tap dances in zero gravity during custard eclipses?" "No," said Sir Taffleton, tapping his button antlers with a ladle. "I'm just here for the jam." And so they set off. Flibble, Sir Hobblesnort, still wearing his monocle, which now occasionally muttered Latin phrases, and the moose with jam-based goals, through the valley of forgotten melodies. There, lullabies were sung by teapots, and the wind smelled faintly of socks that had once contemplated philosophy. As they walked, they passed a tree that grew left turns, not fruit, not leaves, just sharp conversational detours. Flibble plucked one. "I think, therefore, left turn. I once saw a sandwich do calculus." Sir Taffleton nodded. "You're ready?" "Ready for what?" Flibble asked. But the moose had already turned into a bouquet of mismatched mittens. At twilight, decorated in polka dots, the sky played smooth jazz on a xylophone made of toast as they reached the oracle, a rubber duck floating solemnly in a goblet of lukewarm certainty. It blinked twice and spoke with a voice made of yawns. To unlock the pancake dimension, one must first juggle the concept of regret using 3 invisible porcupines and a cheese wheel named Muriel. Flibble blinked. Sir Hobblesnort blinked. The moose, now a mitten again, sneezed. And just like that, the moon turned purple. Everyone forgot why they came, and a tiny door appeared in the sky, complete with a doormat that simply read, "Later." And somewhere beyond that door, in a realm where logic sighs and dreams hum lullabies to spoons, the next part of their journey waits, still unwritten, slightly buttery, and entirely peculiar. There was a brief moment, measurable only by clocks that tick backward and sigh, that everything stood still, not because time had stopped, but because time had misplaced its spectacles. Through the tiny sky door labeled "Later," Flibble and Sir Hobblesnort floated like polite marshmallows into a realm made entirely of metaphors left in coat pockets. The door dissolved behind them with a quiet schlorp, leaving only the faint scent of misplaced Tuesdays and overly confident oatmeal. They landed softly in a field of thoughts that had never been finished. Unwritten novels floated gently overhead, and stray sentences whispered things like, "I was just going to say," before trailing off into question marks. Waiting there, on a bench made of sideways logic, was a clock, not a ticking one. No, this clock paced nervously and wore corduroy. It looked up as they approached and said, "You're late, or early, or both. I'm not really sure anymore." "Do you keep time?" Flibble asked. "I used to," said the clock, adjusting its monocle, which may have once belonged to Sir Hobblesnort's cousin. "But then I fell in love with a sundial, and now I only measure regret." It gestured to a nearby hill where a giant pancake whispered secrets to a choir of bees. "She's waiting for you," the clock muttered, melting a little at the corners. "The pancake?" asked Sir Hobblesnort. "No," replied the clock. "Muriel." At the mention of the cheese wheel's name, a trumpet made of toast sounded in the distance, and the ground beneath them began to hum a lullaby in lowercase letters. As they ascended the hill, the pancake, who had seen better breakfast metaphors, slowly turned to face them. It had eyes, at least 3, and a mouth that spoke exclusively in riddles about spoons and minor disappointments. "Why do ladders weep at dusk?" it asked softly. I don't know," Flibble admitted. "Good," the pancake said, and rolled away into a tulip made of recycled yesterdays. There, nestled in the soft grass of forgotten errands, was Muriel, the legendary cheese wheel, now dressed in a gown of breadcrumbs and wearing reading glasses. She didn't say hello. She just stared at Flibble like he was a piece of furniture that had just confessed to dreaming of jazz. "You've come far," she said at last, voice smooth and slightly cheddar. "Yes," Flibble whispered. "I think." "To unlock the pancake dimension," Muriel continued, "you must now embrace the contradiction that you are not what you wish to become, and yet already are." "Like a soup dreaming of being a bowl?" Flibble asked. Muriel smiled. "Precisely." Sir Hobblesnort took out a small bell that only rang on Thursdays and handed it to the umbrella. "Ring this when you're ready to fold," he said solemnly. "But I'm not tired," Flibble replied. "That's not what folding means," said Muriel and the clock together, though they were nowhere near each other. Just then the sky peeled back like wrapping paper, revealing a spiral staircase leading somewhere else entirely. Flibble looked up, or maybe down. It was hard to tell in places where geometry yawns. The umbrella took a step forward. The moose, still a mitten, rolled gently in the breeze, humming something that might have been a lullaby or a blueprint for a dream. And behind them, time paused briefly, scribbled a note to itself, and continued walking. Flibble stood before the spiral staircase that spiraled in no particular direction, defying gravity, logic, and several well-meaning diagrams. Each step was made of silent questions, and as he ascended, or descended, nobody kept track, the world behind him grew quieter, like it was putting itself to bed. Above, or perhaps within, the sky was no longer sky. It was soup. Not soup in the sky. Not soup under the sky. The sky itself was soup. Alphabet, of course. Letters floated past, forming incomplete words like blimf and snookel, then dissolving into commas of steam. Somewhere in the distance, a foghorn made entirely of clarinets sobbed out a lullaby in E minor. Sir Hobblesnort flapped beside him, now wearing 2 monocles and a tie made of thoughtful jelly beans. "This is it," he said, voice muffled by the increasing density of bouillon vapor. "The end of the arc, the lid of the kettle. Are you ready to stir the truth?" "I don't know," Flibble admitted. "Do I need a spoon?" The pigeon smiled, if that's possible with a beak. "You are the spoon." At that, Flibble blinked, not in confusion but in quiet recognition. He felt it now. Subtle shifts within his ribs, not the creak of old umbrella springs, but the stirrings of ladlehood. He wasn't becoming something new. He was remembering what he'd always been in someone else's dream. From behind a swirl of crouton clouds emerged the final trial, a door made entirely of yawns. It slowly opened of its own volition, revealing a circular room made of yesterday's weather reports and lined with shelves containing every nap that had ever been interrupted. At the center was a mirror, not a mirror for reflecting your face, but one that showed your sound, the quiet echo you leave behind in other people's thoughts. Flibble stepped toward it. It shimmered. There was no reflection, no soup, no rain, only the soft infinite rustle of being. Then he heard it, a soft plink as the spoon boat from the beginning of all this floated into the room, bobbing gently as if it had never left. Muriel, the cheese wheel, was waiting inside, wearing spectacles and holding a small book titled Instructions for the Unknowable. "You've come full circle," she said, not looking up. "I've come full spiral," Flibble corrected. "Close enough." Sir Taffleton Buttersneeze the Third, still partly a mitten and partly a philosophical moose, joined them without fanfare, trailing a constellation of forgotten mittens behind him. They all climbed into the spoonboat. Flibble, Hobblesnort, Taffleton, Muriel, and even the mirror, which had decided to become a seashell, and drifted upward into the sky soup. As they floated past constellations made of toast crumbs and planets shaped like teapots, the universe whispered something that could never be written down, and Flibble, now fully a ladle in heart and handle, reached out with calm purpose and scooped up a star. The soup rippled gently, the wind hummed in lower case, and everything folded into the kind of silence that only dreams can hear. The end? Or perhaps the beginning of a very cozy sleep.